Haskell didn't let them use the library or treat them at their infirmary. I don't think anyone can take it to the level as they can't study in the library, or if they're hurt playing football, can't be treated by the school hospital. Yeah. Tell them if there's somebody coming on those. When we grow up here, we learn about the land run. Kids dress up in pioneer clothing and they run and stake their claim. But what isn't told is the land that they were taking had been stolen from the Indians, and that there's a huge history before that, and a very powerful and wonderful history that existed in Oklahoma. I was a Native American Studies major at Cal Berkeley. I got recruited to play for the U.S. rugby team in the Maccabi Games, which is this Olympic festival every 4 years in Israel. I just graduated law school, and I was supposed to be studying for the bar, and I didn't. I went to Israel instead. Point this right to where you're from, right? I got back 10 days before the bar, and I thought I had no way I was going to pass it. You're not going to have a chance to move off a scrum. So I come back, and somehow I passed. 1 month after passing the bar is when Sylvia Davis came to my office. She was like a congresswoman for the Seminole Nation.
School teacher. I've been teaching for 15 years. My great-great-great-grandmother was a full-blood Indian.
That's right. She said her son went in to get clothing assistance, and the money that the tribe had that gave each kid for school clothing. They said, well, you can't have this. And she says, why? I said, well, you're black. She says, don't you know who I am? I said, on the tribal council. And they said, yeah, we know who you are, and it's not for you.
They put up a resolution to get all blacks out the Seminole Nation. And it's all voted out and kicked out the same night. Going on, it's still going on. We are still being treated the way that they was treating us back then. Right. And this is something that needs to come to an end.
Give me an example of what you experienced in some of those tribal meetings.
At one of my council meetings, I had a tribal member that sit across from me, using the word nigger, nigger. And then the chief of the Seminole Nation standing at the podium with a smile on his face. I do have a name. My mama didn't name me no nigger. My name is Sylvia. You ask me by that name. You want them to speak?
Friedman continued to be on that side.
Kindergarten, my dad, and he said, we're Cherokee Indians, but he said, we also have some colored blood.
I hope each and every one of you have a good time, a safe time, and hope you feel our Cherokee hospitality. God bless each and every one of you, and good luck with the prize money.
I'm descended from a Cherokee Indian named Ryder Fields.
My question from you is not only coming from myself, it's coming from my grandparents, my aunts, my uncles, my mom, my dad, my cousins. I've grown up with this situation. I've grown up hearing about the freedmen. What we've never heard, though, is why do the freedmen want to be Cherokee? And I'll say it like my grandpa said.
Well, I'm not a freedman, but I've talked to a lot of them. And the answer I had is that they are Cherokee. And they don't believe that an elected official or even the majority of the tribe can take that away from them any more than they can do that to you. They believe they're Cherokee because their parents were Cherokee, their grandparents were Cherokee, their great-grandparents are Cherokee. They've been citizens of the tribe since the 1860s. This didn't happen yesterday. So to take that away in 2007 from people that have already had it, they're offended by it. And from a personal level, I believe them and I'll fight for them. And I know a lot of them that's exactly what they stand for.
This has been an exciting week for the Cherokee Nation and our businesses. We opened a new casino in Ramona, and I stand before you as the first chief to say these words. 100% of the new hires were Cherokee.
It's because there's such an influx of gaming revenue. Most people believe that every Indian gets an annuity payment. Cherokees don't pay out annuities. What they do is they create jobs. They create businesses and they create programs. Most people don't understand that. They think every Indian is making big time bucks and they want a piece of that.
I think it is hypocritical for people to say that I am eligible to access those programs when I need them, but because you're Black, you can't. That you're only here to get those services.
The freedmen are entitled to their share of the increasing wealth of their tribes. For years, there was no money in Indian country. There finally is. In gaming generates $30 billion a year in revenue. That's an enormous amount. There's only 2
class. And he looked in his roll book and he's found my father and he found my aunt and he found my grandmother. And he said, yeah, well, they're on the freedmen rolls. And we said, freedmen, what are they? He said, well, they're the former slaves.
I was set on a mission to find out how my family became slaves of the Indians. Every summer at Tahlequah, Oklahoma, the Cherokee Indians sponsor their Trail of Tears pageant, the story of how the U.S. government robbed the so-called 5 civilized tribes of their homelands in the South and moved them by force to Oklahoma. They don't tell about the thousands of blacks the tribes brought with them, their slaves.
The slave trade was introduced by white slave owners into what I would call the aristocracy of the Cherokee Nation and the Indian nations. Most full-bloods were not slave owners. It was the mixed bloods, the people who lived like white planters. They were the ones that had slaves. Masters frequently made use of female slaves, and those slaves produced children.
At the Cherokee Museum today are slave bills of sale, including one for 3 slaves bought in 1841 by then Principal Chief John Ross. The chief and his brother Lewis were among the biggest slaveholders in the tribe. Indeed, many of my mother, Kathleen's ancestors, the Rosses, were owned by the chief's family.
During the Civil War, the so-called 5 civilized tribes here in Oklahoma officially sided with the Confederacy. After the Confederacy lost the Civil War, the tribes executed agreements, called Treaty of 1866, with the federal government. In those agreements or those treaties, of the 5 tribes, the Chickasaw being the exception, agreed to accept their former enslaved persons of African ancestry as citizens of the various tribes.
We believe in the Treaty of 1866. There is obviously a difference of interpretation as to part of that treaty. Now, if you read that treaty, and what the treaty says is that freedmen and their descendants will have the rights of Native Cherokees. It does not guarantee citizenship.
To me, the 1866 treaty is pretty clear. It says that they would have all the rights of Native Cherokees. Well, if you have all the rights of Native Cherokees, why are we going through all this?
In Adair County, it's in the state, involved in it. My dad's they're all full-blood people. Freedmen issue, working at PetSmart at the time that Lucy Allen's case came up. Lucy Allen is a freedman descendant. I met her at a meeting of freedmen at the North Tulsa Regional Library. She lives right in the heart of North Tulsa. Most, if not all, of her neighbors are African American. Most of them are descendants of freedmen.
The chief claims that as long as you have Indian blood, that you're welcome and that they want you in there, but that's not true.
She had stood up and had talked about what had happened to her at Cherokee Nation when she had gone in to apply for citizenship. I saw the pain in her eyes. I saw how she perceived herself as a Cherokee. She didn't see herself as just a black woman. She saw herself as a Cherokee.
Lord Jesus, Lord, give them a blessing, Lord Jesus. Lord, bless them to go back home safe.
And that wasn't any intentional representation on her part. It just came across in how she spoke and the things that she said and how she lived her life. All of her records indicate that both of her parents were of Cherokee Indian blood descent, but their blood was not counted because of their African ancestry. A couple of times she told me that when she had applied and then she had gone back down to check on the status of her application, it could not be located. The presumption being that it was probably thrown away. And her question was, what can we do? My response was, let's sue them. It was one of those issues that I felt like could be resolved internally, that the Cherokees themselves could fix it in tribal court. We filed our lawsuit in November of 2004 to reclaim her citizenship. I acted as a lay advocate. I'm not a lawyer, but the traditional Cherokee view of law was that if you could understand Cherokee law, then you could practice law in our courts. I didn't have any tools. I had no computer, and I had to go buy one. Didn't even know if I had credit. I named it the Cherokee War Machine. The current Attorney General for the Cherokee Nation, Todd Hembry, was the attorney that I had to go up against in tribal court. He was very good at using the federal rules of civil procedure to undermine just about everything that I tried to do. I really didn't know the federal rules, but I became very familiar with them.
We have the right to do that.
What would happen would be I would get home from work and open my mailbox, and there would be another filing from Todd Hembry. And so my evenings were taken up with answering those, doing research. Most of the time, it was really interfered more with my personal life than it did anything. I had no life. Well, I'd gone to work at PetSmart not thinking about the Allen case at all. The court had said that they would take all of the filings under advisement and would issue a ruling within a couple of weeks, and it was already over a month. I was in the back loading dog food, and I hear my name over the paging system, to come to the office. They had told me I had a phone call. And so I answered the call, and it turned out to be Sophia Fields, the court clerk. All of the staff were hanging around the office, watching these papers out of the back. I read one, and then hand the next, and hand the next. The room as quick as I was, and they were all just amazed. They didn't realize, I don't think I had been acting as a lay advocate in the tribal court. And she sitting down. So I down. One. I cried. Felt good taking a lot.
I thought the case was lost. I thought, wow, okay, so there is some justice in this Cherokee Nation. And this wasn't something the U.S. government did. This was something the Cherokee Nation did. I mean, my grandmother had her tribal rights. My mother had her tribal rights. My father had his. But these smart lawyers took ours away. And this guy, David Cornsilk, got them back to us.
after reading the decision, it seemed airtight. That, you know, I thought it's over. You know, we've got our victory. Everything is going to be okay from here on out.
Oversee the truthfulness and the systems of the.
Well, you think you're in, and then here comes some guy named Chad Smith who wants to kick the blacks out.
I never expected that he would spend millions of dollars to try to get the freedmen kicked out of the tribe, because there were lots of other issues pressing in the tribe. You know, there's healthcare and education, housing, all of those things that are important to the individual tribal members. Every time he used the word freedmen, he never failed to include the non-Indian freedmen. So that created an image in the mind of the Cherokees that these people are just non-Indians doing what non-Indians have done for the last 500 years, and that is take something from us. He called a special election for March 13th.
I was actually surprised at the resources that were marshaled to get that amendment done at such a quick pace. But the Cherokee people went through the constitutional process, and it was voted on, and it was passed, and it became a part of the Constitution, the same Constitution that I swore to uphold when I took my oath of office. In my opinion, race has nothing to do with this. This is not a racial issue. As I said earlier, it is a sovereignty issue.